Hello, 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 and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about Toon shaders. Yay! Okay. Um. So I'm just going to start by adding a sphere. Smoothen my sphere, and add a light, a sunlight. Put it in here, bonk it over, and then I'm going to set it to 10. Sometimes I set it to 5, sometimes I set it to 10. Okay, and now we pop in the shading. So, Toon shaders usually refer to when there's like there's not this gradient, as you can see here. It's like there's only two tones usually in like Toon shaders. There can be more, but usually it refers to two: the base color and then the shadow color. So I'm gonna add a teapot. RZ90. What? There we go. Now we have two things to look at, the sphere and the teapot. Just so you can see how it looks on a more complicated mesh. And I will add a subdivision because that teapot kind of chunky. Okay. So let's start by making a base Toon shader. This will be the most basic of basic Toon shaders. And I think for the most part, it works for pretty much everything. A lot of about Toon shaders, at least if you're going for the anime style look, most of the control comes from the mesh itself by editing normals. But if you just want it to look non-realistic, then this should work. Let's start with a diffuse. Getting that shader data. I'm not going to use this, at least not yet, because this has like metallic roughness. It has a lot of things, but I just want a really basic shader, so I'm going to delete it. I said delete it. So I'm going to get a shader to RGB. What this is going to do is it's going to take our shader data and take it to a color data. I'm going to take this into a color ramp. This is going to allow me to control what this shadow looks like. So I can push it up, I can push it down, I can push the light up, push down. Basically, influence and like clamping the colors. But for the basic Toon shader, we're gonna need to take this little tab right here and go constant. And we're gonna probably move it about like halfway. Boom. This is the most basic Toon shader. So it's not that bad. It's a nice little Toon shader. It's not too hard on the system or anything. And what you do if you want to change the colors is you just, let's make it a blue. Just change it here. No. Beautiful. Ta-da! Now what happens if we want to make it if we want to have a texture here? Well, let's make a new one. Or I just duplicated that one. Text. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this back to black and this back to white. I always do it in 2 steps. There we go. I'm going to drag off and get a mix. I'm going to put it into the factor because this is going to be controlling how this mixes. So if I plugged it in now, what you could do is the same thing we did with the colors. There, yeah, that's the same thing. But we want to use textures. So we could either simply get a checker. We could do this. We could plug one in. We can make another one, plug that one in, and just make these darker. But that's not really effective. There's a bunch of different ways to do this, but I think the easiest way is to set this to multiply. And when we set it to multiply, it's going to invert this. So the shadow color is going to be where the light should be. So just grab an invert node and plonk it in. So I'm going to grab a texture, tile grass. Plug it in. Okay. Plug it in generated. Just ignore this. There we go. Now it looks somewhat decent on both. The pot wasn't UV wrapped for this. Okay. And so now what's happening is we are, if I take this to black, we are multiplying our image by the color. So it's black now because I'm multiplying it by black. And think of it as like, if you multiply something by 0, you're going to get 0. So at least in most color stuff and encoding, black is 0 and white is 1. That's why when you have like an opacity mask, if I go on a little tangent here, leaf alpha. See a leaf alpha here. 1, the white is 1, which means it's solid, and the black is 0, which means it's see-through. Kind of sort of that thing. Okay, tangent, return. So if I leave it at 1, we're multiplying it by 1, and it's going to be the exact same. So what we want to do is we want to have it lower. So we don't want it to be 0. We just want it to be like a value little less than 1. So think we want it to be 75% as bright. So you could really go down to the value and type in 0.75. Done. So yeah, I would recommend a lower number though, like this. So this is the most simple way to add a texture to your Toon shader. Yeah! Whee! But what if you want a metal Toon shader? Well, let's go. So I'm going to delete this, call it metal, and I'm going to scoop-a-doop back over here. For a metal Toon shader, we're actually going to need to grab the principled BSDF again, plonk it in, and delete the diffused. And then we want to go to metallic and increase it to 1. 1's good. But we're also going to want to add another step. There we go. Oh, it's metallic. Whee! So say if we want to make this gold. So this would still work with the material per se. I'm gonna get a mix, multiply. I'm gonna change this to a yellow. That's more of an orange. Is it yellow? There, it's gold. You can also, oh, my image is gone. Checker. So now we got metal checker. But I think for metal, what I usually do is, I'm not usually using a texture for metal, is I would go in here and do it manually. I want this. I want this. No, actually, that can go back to white. And then I would clamp it a little bit more like this. I need more, needs to be more yellow. Oop. Yellow. Woo! I'm not very good at picking out gold colors, but yeah, there's my bad gold. Okay, yeah, this is a very basic metal shader. metal toon shader. And now I'll go on to one of probably the harder ones. We're gonna do Toon glass. Okay. So we're gonna start by getting a Fresnel. Take that to color ramp. Take that into mix shader. And we're gonna start over here with I'm gonna say emission and transparent. Okay. So what we're preparing to do is we're gonna use this Fresnel to control where we see the outline of the glass and where we're going to see through the glass. Bulk. Oop. Okay. Now, Fresnel can be a little hard to work with depending on what your object is. Sometimes it's really hard to get this crisp outline. So if you're having trouble controlling it or getting it to work, I usually do a math, and then take it to a power, and then plop it in. And that can increase the power of the Fresnel. So if you just do power of 1, I think that will be the same as what we had. So yeah, that just gives you a little bit more control if for some reason the shape you're using is more complicated and Fresnel's acting funky. Of course, this Fresnel doesn't work well on all objects. So yeah, that's just a warning. Now you notice that it's not transparent. That's because we need to go down here to material, blend mode, alpha blend. And we'll also need to turn off backface culling, because otherwise you're gonna see a bunch of chaos. It's very important to do that, otherwise you'll get some weird effects. So I'm gonna change this to constant. And go. There! It's our Toon glass. Now, if you want the light to affect it, we can add a diffuse. Get our basic. Get the basic Toon shader back. Shader. Color. Oh, not diffuse. I think we need glossy. Glossy. So I'm just gonna plug that in to right here so we can get a good look at it. Gonna clamp the results. Roughness, gonna decrease the roughness down. Did that. And then what I'm gonna do is take this, get a mix node, set this to add, bonk it, and then plop it here, and plop it here. Oh, what did I do? No, get out of volume. That's weird, it's not showing up. Like, if I took these and I put them in here, it would look weird. We have the shiny of the gloss. Okay, oh. Hold up. If I invert it. Invert it. No, that didn't do anything. Give me a minute. What if I try this one? And then another invert. Okay, there we go. I think it was having issues because we have the color ramps are showing it on different sides, and I guess it was just doing some funky things. So if you want to add a glossiness to it, oh, it looks like a little magical bubble, and I love it. Look at the magical bubble. You need to do an invert and then an invert. Sometimes you just gotta do a bunch of shenanigans to get things to work. Okay, it's our Toon glass. Now there's a bunch of other like stuff you can do. There's a bunch of Toon shader tutorials out there with like I think the most fanciest one I know of, at least off the top of my head, is the Lightning Boy Studio one. That one's pretty intimidating. I can make it past the first part and then things start going wrong on the second part, and I don't know why. I might be able to make it farther now. But there's a lot of Toon tutorials with a lot of different styles. I usually stick towards more like the anime styles. And yeah, that's how we get here. And if, don't worry if something like this is too complicated. It's okay to just start with the base. Because, eventually, the more you kind of follow tutorials and the more you mess around with it, the more you'll understand. And then the less scary the Lightning Boy shader tutorial will be. I remember I tried it when I first started because it looked cool and it just scared me and it was like so confusing. And then like a year later I came back to it and I was like, oh, I can understand this more. So don't panic if there's a shader you want but it's too complicated. You'll get there. It just might take a while. But you'll get there. You just gotta believe. Believe. Okay, well, I guess I'll see you guys soon. I'm sorry this video took so long to come out. It's something called school. Okay, well, have a great day and see you soon. Goodbye.